Go ahead and get started. I'm Kim Welch. I'm the Education and Outreach Director for Perfect Circle Credit Union. I go out into our community and share financial education with mainly high school and middle schoolers, but we do meet with some adults still. And during the pandemic, we decided that maybe Zoom would be a good opportunity for us to share some of these financial topics with adults in their home at their convenience. And so thank you for being here, and we'll go ahead and get started. So we're going to talk about emergency funds. Earners of all ages should have a well-funded emergency savings account, but savings can be difficult when you have debt or maybe an income that feels incompatible with putting money away for a rainy day. But it is a vital part of building financial health for yourself and your family. So let's just explore tonight some important features of emergency funds and some practical approaches to building one. So an emergency fund is a pool of money set aside to cover unexpected expenses or to cover regular expenses if your income suddenly changes, like if you lose a job or you get sick, something like that. I need to remember to move my slides. So we're going to discuss when to use your emergency fund, how much you should have saved in it, building one, where do you keep it, how you can structure it, the ladder to safety, and a few other resources. So emergency funds are essential to our financial wellness. We could ask the question why emergency funds are so crucial. It's because emergencies happen to everyone, right? These are unexpected costs that can put you in a terrible financial situation if you're underprepared. So in fact, most emergency expenses are the main reason people overdraw their checking accounts, go into debt, use their credit cards, begin withdrawing money out of their retirement accounts before they're ready to retire, things like that, because of job loss, unexpected car repairs, medical emergencies, things that happen around the house. They're not expected, they can be large, and it's just difficult to pay for them sometimes. So an emergency fund is this amount of money that you set aside, and you only use it to cover these type of unexpected expenses or essential expenses if you lose your job. And building and using an emergency fund effectively can help you avoid some debt and negative impacts to your credit. Said another way, without an emergency fund, the ups and downs of life can keep you from reaching your financial goals. So, when can you use your emergency fund? We know that an emergency fund is money set aside to help us with emergencies, but what constitutes as an emergency? For some people, it's different, I guess. When an emergency comes along, we're tempted to, or when an expense comes along, something that we didn't plan for, but we would like, maybe something like that, we are tempted to use our emergency fund savings for it. But this is you need to be asking yourself, is this an unexpected expense? If it's not, then we're not going to use the money out of the emergency fund. So even though it's a large expense, like maybe car registration, for example, it comes along every year. Christmas comes along every year. Those aren't emergencies. They're not unexpected, and we should be saving in other ways to help pay for those large expenses that occur every year. It's wise to plan ahead for those expenses and save for them too. The other question that we need to be asking ourselves, is it urgent? Is this expense urgent? And it's possible that you'll encounter an unexpected expense that you won't need to pay for right away. And those cases can vary. You know, if you have car trouble and you've got to replace a very expensive part of the car, the engine maybe, if you can carpool or bike to work, or, you know, borrow a car for a short period of time, that's what people do when they can't fund that expense. So not all things are urgent. Maybe you can get by with saving the money up and not taking the money out of your emergency fund at that time. You can, let's see. The other thing is avoidable or unavoidable, rather. Another way to think of this is whether or not the expense is necessary. Is there a way to get around paying for this emergency expense without going into debt? Can you manage a way to avoid paying for it with your emergency fund? And this could be, if we ask the question for some examples about how to use or when not to use this emergency fund, unexpected, urgent, and necessary expenses and regular expenses when you lose your job unexpectedly, or maybe maybe your new tire after you blew out your other one is a way. It's unavoidable. You've got to go ahead and do it, and that's when you should use your emergency fund. But to buy a big screen TV because you want one, or to go on a trip, or something's on sale, those aren't the times to be dipping into the emergency fund. And how much should we save in our emergency fund? And that is a question that we get asked a lot. And I just put the general guidelines here on this slide. Short-term goal would be to save between $500 and $1,000 initially, and then begin working on saving 3 to 6 months worth of net income. But other advisors, if you read options, you know, people can suggest a baseline of $1,000 and then at minimum 3 to 6 months worth of expenses, which is different than net income. And, you know, some people will suggest, you know, a whole year worth of expenses. So there's really no one's agreeing, but these are the general rules here, and it is a little bit conservative using the net income versus your net expenses. Some people will say if you're both working, if there's a dual income in your household, you might not need to save as much money because it would be unlikely that both of you would lose your job at the same time. But also, if you have children, maybe you should save more because there's obviously going to be higher expenses in your household. So different households of different sizes will just have to have a little different idea of how much emergency savings they need. But in general, this $500 to $1,000 to get started, I think is a good way to, a good consideration. Because it's just, you know, it's impossible to predict the cost of unexpected expenses. So how big the emergency fund should be generally is up to, you know, just these rules of thumb, basically. So how do we go about building an emergency fund? The first step in building an emergency fund is to create a budget. And you need to do that first because there you're going to be analyzing your income and all of your expenses. And until you know how much you have going out on a regular basis, you're not going to know how much money you really need for an emergency fund. That's going to help you decide that. part of the equation. But having a budget also is going to allow you to see if there's money available to begin using for savings that you had been using for things that you didn't really need. And just getting on a budget will help you with all of that. And after you create your budget, you know how much you have available possibly to begin saving. You need to create a dedicated savings goal. And you can probably help yourself out a lot if you have this direct deposited, make it automatic, that it's going into the account without you having to remember to put it in the account. And the easier it is, the more likely it's going to happen, and the savings will begin building up. There are ways to kickstart your emergency fund if you feel like, well, I went through my budget, I don't have a lot left over after we pay all of our expenses. Some ways to kickstart it would be to obviously sell some things, have a yard sale, and put the funds from the sale into an account to get that started. Maybe for a short time, you get a second job until you build up that initial $500 to $1,000. And, or, you know, you look at, there's a lot of people that just do things on the side anymore. It's called a gig economy. It's pretty rampant. And, you know, what can you do? What are you good at that is kind of fun to you anyway, that could help you build this emergency fund, because you know that it's going to be tight, just trying to get that money saved out of your regular budget, which, you know, after you've been established and you start your household and you don't make savings a priority from the beginning, it really is hard to start saving money. We tend to think we can afford a lot of things because we can afford the monthly payments, and we overextend ourselves to the point where savings was never a priority. So if anyone is listening that is just starting out with their first job, with the budget, the first line in your budget should be savings, and learn to live off of the difference from what you need to be saving for this rainy day emergency fund, but also the things that you want to do. People will save for Christmas, they'll save for trips and vacations. And because those are important to them, they then realize that they just have less money to spend on, housing and auto and other things. And if you learn to budget that way instead of the other way, which is we get what we want, and then if we have anything left over, we'll save it, that doesn't work out very well for most people. So there's anything I wanted to add about, I realized that establishing a emergency fund is kind of daunting. And it will be for a lot of people, and they won't, they'll see the amount of money that maybe they need if they're sitting here in this webinar and hearing that they need to save 3 months worth of expenses, and they're doing some number calculations and they're like, oh, that number's huge, I'll never get there. That just seems really impractical. We really have to just step back. There's no expectation that the emergency savings should be fully funded as soon as you realize that you really needed an emergency fund. It takes time, no matter what your income no matter what income you have, and that's okay. Be okay with it and just begin. And even if it's, whatever it is that you can do, it will be, if it's $100 a month, at the end of 1 year, it's going to be $1,200 that you didn't have saved before. And, it will take 5, 6, 7 years to get where you want to be. And that is normal. Okay. It's not normal. It's okay. Your emergency fund should be in something that's easy to access, but not super easy. Okay. So it shouldn't be in like your underwear drawer at home, because if you decide that you want to go shopping, well, then you can just dip in there and get it and take it and have a good time. So that's not what I mean. But because we never know when we'll face emergencies and how much they're going to be urgent and things like that, we want to put them in an account that we can withdraw from. So I would recommend putting them in a regular share account like we have at the credit union, but not the account that you would maybe get into if, just for other things you might be saving for. We also have a club account. We call it the Club 4. And although it doesn't have a great interest rate, neither does the savings account right now, but at least you can keep it separate from the other savings that you have going. And you can have as many Club 4s as you want, and you can name it whatever you want. So you could have an emergency fund club, you could have a Christmas club, you can have a vacation club, you can have the new car club, a wedding account, whatever is going on in your life that you're saving for. And with those club accounts, it's not as easy for you to get to, but it is there when you need it. Another option would be after you've built that initial $500 to $1,000 savings is begin putting money in potential CDs. We have a few different kinds of CDs. One that I wanted to mention today was the Save to Win CD, because there is an extra incentive. It does earn interest. I think it's 0.25%, which is about what the other CDs are also paying. But with the Save to Win, for every $25 you deposit up to $250 for that month, you're entered into a drawing to win cash prizes. And we have had members win several $100s. There is a prize, I think, of up to $5,000. So it is a fun way to save. There's a little bit of incentive there outside of just the interest. And I think it's been fairly successful. The Save to Win CD is a 1-year CD. So if you needed to withdraw the funds because of an emergency, you would have to, I think maybe you can withdraw once without a penalty, but more than that, then you would be paying some fees, and you don't want to be doing that. So this isn't something that you would put all of your money into, but that after you build up a cushion, you can begin considering that type of CD. Other people will use CDs for an emergency fund, and it's a concept called laddering. And I imagine it was more during a time when CDs were paying a lot more than they are now, but maybe we'll get back to that point. So I just wanted to share that this is an option where you ladder the maturity date of the CD and have different types of certificates, different terms, so that there is always some money coming available to you. And the benefit of this is that you would only want to do this because it's a lot of work, actually. You would probably only want to do that if the interest was significant enough. And sometimes even our credit union will offer a special interest rate for a specific time or a promo or something like that. Again, you wouldn't want to put all of your money in the same certificate. You would want to layer it and put them in different terms so that they mature at different times, so that you're not always locked into a certificate that you would have to, if you needed to access the funds, have to pay. And then some people are in a position where they don't know, they've got debt, but they also know that they need to start an emergency fund. So what comes first? And I just go with, I don't know if you're familiar with him, Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey would share his opinion about this. And actually, it's part of the baby steps that he teaches. And that the first thing before you ever pay any debt is that you build up $1,000 emergency fund. And then you begin paying down debt. And once your debt's paid off, that's when you start working on the 3 to 6 months worth of savings, net your income or your expenses. And that really resonates with me. It seems to make a lot of sense because your debt is costing you money. If you have debt, it's hard to save. So the quicker we can get the debt paid off, the better. And I think that is good advice. So to recap, when we fund, we want to fund the emergency fund first when we're looking at our budget. If that's not possible because you have a lot of different expenses, you're going to have to look at what has to be paid, after you subtract out your expenses from your income and see what makes sense to try to save. But for those of you that maybe are just beginning and you don't have a lot of expenses, starting out, emergency fund should be one of the first lines of your budget. And you should start with an emergency savings account, just a regular savings account. Keep it simple and use direct deposit, automated deposits whenever possible. And you don't want to continue to go into debt and use credit. So it's a good idea to just make yourself start saving to make most of those big purchases. And you kind of hate to part with some money after you've saved it for a while. You're like, do I really want to spend it on that? Versus if we just have that instant gratification, we sometimes don't even appreciate or we have regret about the purchases that we make. So good idea to save for purchases. We can calculate your emergency savings goals. You need to do that. So if you were to calculate just net income, 3 to 6 months worth of net income, you would calculate, how much money you bring in and multiply that by 3, 4, 5, or 6 months. And that's how much you would need in your emergency savings account. And then you would determine from your budget how much you could save on a monthly basis. And maybe you need $8,000 and you're going to save $100. So it's going to take you several months or several years to actually accumulate that money. And probably during that time frame, you're going to be dipping into that emergency fund because something's going to happen. Stuff doesn't not happen while you're trying to save for emergencies. The good thing is when you begin saving for emergencies, you now have somewhat of a life preserver to help you, cope with it. On our website, we also have a couple of resources. So I had the link there, but if you go to our website, PCCU.com, we have a wellness center and you can search on the topic of, let's see, I think it's just, I'm forget here. Emergency fund. There's a calculator. Can you guys, is it still following me on my screen over to our website? Didn't ask that.
No, it's just showing the resources and then the
Is it?
URL.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. But if you go to our website, there's 2 resources in wellness, an emergency fund calculator, and then there is also an emergency fund coach. And the coach is interactive. It's kind of nice. It'll ask you questions, have you put the information in there so you can be super honest. Sometimes we don't like to disclose where we're really at with people because we feel embarrassed by our situation, our financial situation. So the coach is nice because it's just you and the computer and you're answering some questions and it gives you some feedback on where you are. But the calculator will also calculate based on how much money you can save each month and your savings goal, how long it will take you to reach that goal. So that's nice as well. Let's see if I can get out of this. Get back to our resources there. So one last time, use the emergency fund when expenses are urgent, unexpected, and unavoidable. An emergency fund should be accessible. And a robust savings goal would be 3 to 6 months of income. But a minimum would be 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. And maybe less if you have dual incomes, or maybe more if you have children or several children. So do you guys have any questions? If you're still on, we will be doing a drawing. One of our incentives for attending our Perfect Flex financial education is that we give you an opportunity to win $50 if you register and attend. So Jason, I'm going to turn it over to you for that part of it. Since I don't think I have any questions.
Kim.
You have a question?
Oh, yeah.
This is Dottie. Would you give the information? I was trying to write it down and get it down fast enough on the PCCU Save to Win CD.
Sure. Yeah. It's a 1-year CD, and you can for every $25 that you deposit up to $250, you will be entered into a drawing for every $25. And you could possibly win several $100s, even thousands. That $5,000 prize isn't every month, but there is a monthly drawing, and we have had members win $200, $300. So it earns about, I think, 0.25% as well. And once you start depositing money into it, you can't withdraw from it for a year. At the end of the year, you're able to withdraw the funds from it or keep the funds in there and just renew the CD and keep adding to it.
Yeah, if you go to our website, you'll see across towards the top different categories. If you go under the category that says products and services, there'll be a drop down. And if you drop down to where it says savings accounts, you'll see another subcategory, and the Save to Win information is under that category under the savings account under products and services. And that'll give you an explanation of of what Save to Win is. It also gives you official rules and things from the Save to Win program and everything. So, and like I said, that's on the website under products and services, and then under savings account, Save to Win. And I can tell you, I do know, like last year, for example, we did have someone from Perfect Circle, a member, did win $1,000 in a drawing last year. So they do national drawings, and then every month Perfect Circle does a members drawing as well. So a good chance to win money while you're saving it there. But all that, like I said, is under the website, under products and services, and then savings accounts. You'll find Save to Win.
It's just kind of a fun way that some credit unions decided to cooperate with each other and fund it. And then, it's just a random drawing. So we don't know that our members are going to win anything. But it's, a little bit in up front for a big payoff for our members if they are one of the lucky ones that gets their name drawn out. So it's been a fun thing, I think, for our membership. A fun incentive for saving. Did you have any other questions, Dottie?
There, I was talking, you just couldn't hear me. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Okay. I don't know much about CDs at all. So I wanted to clarify, once you open the CD, is it like similar to a savings account in the fact that you can keep contributing to it?
That's right.
Or you don't open it up with one initial amount.
Right.
And that's it. So you can make contributions as often as you want.
Yes.
But you cannot take out of it until you've had it from the time you open it to a year.
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, it doesn't have to be a set amount that you're putting in there weekly or monthly. You could have some funds one month that you want to put in there and not put anything in it for 2 or 3 months. It's very flexible.
Well, thank you for the information. I think I will check it out.
Great. That's wonderful. Okay, Jason, back to you.
Okay, so as maybe you know, that we usually, if you sign up and register in advance and you attend, we do a drawing of those that are in attendance. And I just want to make sure I've got Dottie, I have Janice, and then I have Melissa. Is it Melissa Burns? Is that the last name? Is that correct? Melissa, if you want to type a message or something, just verifying that, because we did have a Melissa Burns signed up. I just want to make sure. Okay, she said yes, so it is Melissa Burns. So we have a wheel that we're going to spin to see who wins, and the name that'll come up for this month's winner is Janice Schutte. She is the winner of this the $50 for attending. So congratulations to Janice. And again, as usual, Kim, we like to thank you for your time and efforts into this and the presentation.
Right, and it is recorded and it is saved in our Perfect Flux tab on our website, so you can go back and watch it again. Yay! I don't go back and watch these things, but or share the information with someone if they weren't able to attend. So thank you guys.